You're now plugged in to the Delphi podcast.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Delphi podcast. Today I am delighted to introduce you all to Tin, the founder of Sipher, one of the founders that we backed on the ventures front quite a few years ago now, and have been continually impressed with the relentless shipping coming out of this ecosystem. So Tin, very excited to have you here.
It's a great pleasure to be here, man.
Perhaps you could kick us off and give us a quick snapshot summary of your background. I know you had a relatively unconventional path towards gaming, so perhaps you could give the audience a flavor of that before we dig in.
Sure. Without dragging on too long, in my previous life, I used to be working in the real estate industry. As a matter of fact, I was a CEO of a large real estate developer. It's a family business. We've been around for 30 plus years, and we built high-rise condos, office building, villas, and everything. So I was doing that for a good 8 years. My background was also in property construction, so that's where all the training and learning real working experience. And then I fell in love with crypto about 3 years plus back, and I thought this space is it's full of innovation, full of like new ideas, and just people willing to try things. And I was so fascinated by it, and then of course fell in love with the whole Bitcoin, Ethereum ideology. So I basically dropped everything and took a chance with this new venture. And luckily, I got the people like yourself, the other investor who were very supportive and backed me in this vision. And fast forward to now, 3 years after that, we still have a very strong, growing team of 140 people in the studio. We are passionate. We're building amazing gaming and AI blockchain experiences. So I cannot be more happy to be here, man.
Good man, I love that. I didn't realize it's 140 now. That's very, very, very impressive. Still be tracking with a big team. I'm curious then, what exactly was it that appealed to you about gaming? Like, what was it that drew you towards that, and you saw that side of opportunity in the industry?
I think that's the easy part, right? I think we all grew up playing games, and our generation. My parents got me into gaming when I was 6 years old, playing Dr. Mario, and they were like PvPing each other at night, and I was just watching all that growing up. And they brought me my computer, they brought me my consoles, and I was a massive gamer. Uh, and then when I got into a bit more hardcore gaming, when it comes to Warcraft 3, Dota. I played a lot of Dota, a ton of it during high school and university, and then StarCraft 2. I was really want to be competitive in that scene, even though I suck at it. But I think gaming really first and foremost really is an escape. It really helps you just forget all the stress outside and just be lost in this like amazing worlds that the creators make. And then also gaming bring people together, right? Gaming bring friends, bring people together, and you're part of like a bigger social group while you're gaming. So I think those two things just always fuel my desire to, hey, is it possible to do something in gaming? Even though I have no background training, like I said, I'm a property construction guy and like an architect type of guy. So well, how would I start? But I think when I came across crypto, and I thought that this crypto innovations combined with gaming can really unlock something radical, something totally new that the world hasn't seen before. Of course, now we all know like NFT, digital assets, and all that, but three plus years ago, that was still something very novel. And I think this is my chance, right, to do something I love, gaming, and to build at the edge of like cutting edge of innovative technologies. And man, I just took a shot, and that's why.
I love that. So I want to dig in a little bit into the ecosystem because there's quite a lot to unpack. But let's start then. You decided to pull the trigger with gaming. Like, what is Sipher? Talk us through the game vision, the game idea. Why did you go after this genre?
Sure. So, Cypher, when at inception, Cypher was the idea that, okay, I know I want to build gaming, I want to build blockchain, but not every game should be a blockchain game, right? It has to have the right like genre fit, and I think that the right genre fit would be a game or games that have a really large world, that can be sustained by a large player economy, where there's a lot of like commerce going on, right? That's where the digital assets aspect comes in. So the logical type of games would be either like MMORPGs or just like RPGs or like RTS, but with a like EVE Online, right? But with like a large economy. So Cypher was conceived until to this day is an action RPG, very much like the if you were to have like Diablo 4 and Borderlands and Hades would have like a three-way baby. That's the kind of world we're trying to build, something that's action packed, that's really fun, very quickly, easy to pick up and play, but with a really deep economy where the players, if they want to progress further and master the game, they have to invest in the lore, the crafting, the socketing, the refinement of the items and gears and builds. And that hopefully will drive the longevity and the tradability of the game. And that's where the whole, blockchain, frictionless, commerce rails comes right in. So I think to this day, 3 years after, we're still very much sticking to that vision, and we are super excited to be shipping, Sipher Odyssey, the first of this IP. Sipher is an IP, right? Sipher Odyssey is our very first flagship game, and we're excited to be shipping it globally in the next couple of months. We've been lucky with the early access in last year. We got over 200,000 install and download, top rank in the Apple Store in C. Apple feature us the game, Sipher Odyssey. So we got a lot of like great feedback from like normal gamers, right? They don't care about the crypto aspects underneath. They just want to play the game. And I think my next challenge is this year as we go to global launch with the economy now live and not a fake economy anymore. We have to basically educate people that, hey, this economy is powered by blockchain. Your
Mhm.
assets are real. It's digital. It's real. You own it. You possess it. Make use of it. Take advantage of it. So I think that's going to be our challenge, but also exciting to finally have a real economy, a real game, and then just real gamers coming in.
Absolutely. It's a delicate balance, that phase. I feel like we're now at this sort of critical inflection point, right? Where we've had the many years of development, we've had lots of games funded, and there are lots of incredibly polished things starting to come to market where it's now like almost the wait and see, right? Of like, is this actually going to resonate with gamers? Are all these things that we're very passionate about of like, proper digital property rights and, these ideas of
Hmm.
actual ownership. Like it's also a delicate line, as I say, communicating that most effectively. So excited to see how all of that happens. You touched on obviously being featured by Apple in Southeast Asia, which is really, really cool. So obviously launching on iOS, Android, like yeah, maybe just talk us through some of the other platforms because I know you had a PC component as well, just so people could
Yeah,
get a feel of the stuff.
100%. So, I mean, again, since inception, we want to make it cross-platform. What does it mean? It means that we want to go wherever the players are, right? We want to go to mobile games because it's the biggest platform in Asia. All the people here grew up playing games on mobile devices. And of course, we want to go after the Steam and Epic Game Store as well, and also with other, like things like emulators such as, BlueStacks and so on. So we're going to be all on all platform. And we're also we just got approved by PlayStation to basically start developing and porting Cypher Odyssey over. So I'm super excited about that, and hopefully we can clear all the PlayStation hurdles and Xbox hurdle to again bring Cypher Odyssey, the free to play action RPG that we have been building to everybody. And I think that's how we want to onboard the masses into Web3, into blockchain, right? Just get them playing, get them loving the game, getting them digital assets, and then getting them to ownership.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, excited to see what comes of that. I wanted to also touch on then like the latest evolution. So you kind of nailed the products right, obviously rolling that out to a more traditional audience, as you mentioned, like bringing the economy online. Like maybe talk us through a bit more around like what the sort of on-chain ecosystem looks like, right? I know there's
Yeah,
been the recent evolution with Funky and all that kind of
that's
stuff.
right.
Talk us through that.
That's right. So as you know, since we started 3 years ago, there were not many, I would say, live blockchain games at that point. There was Axie Infinity and a couple more, but the whole on-chain UX were extremely bad, very, very terrible. If you can, I think everyone can recall that. And that is not how we think the onboarding and also the user experience, the gamer experience should be. I think blockchain should, if anything, be an afterthought to the gamer's mind, where things should just work, right? So as we were building out Cypher Odyssey, we were faced with a choice of like which blockchain should we adopt, which technology should we adopt, and why. And after many, many conversations with multiple chains, because we had a good product, so people wanted to ask for us to build on them. But after our conversation with the Optimism Foundation, the team over there, we were just very excited by their vision that, I think the vision is not just one single chain or two chains or three chains, but like this multiverse of blockchains where they're all going to be interconnected and somehow in some way, right? Using some kind of like a ZK technology or so or whatnot. And by having our own kind of like blockchain developed environment, we are able to really optimized for the user experience, especially with the onboarding phase. So with Funky Chain, our blockchain that we are dedicated for gaming and AI that we have created together with the Optimism Foundation, is an Ethereum layer two. So by that, we are able to basically still have the Ethereum cryptographic guarantee security, but also are able to optimize on the gas, on the transaction speed, and ultimately we as the blockchain operator are able to sponsor or be the paymaster for quite a few like user on-chain transactions. So what does that mean? It means that the user that onboard onto Funky or onto blockchain via Cypher Odyssey or our other apps, they are able to not worry about, okay, do I have, Ethereum? Do I have gas? No, we can take care of all that for them. And I think that will be the ultimate experience for adoption. And then if once they are comfortable with the ecosystem, with the blockchain, with the products, then they can choose to run their own, non-custodial wallets. They can have their own MetaMask and everything, and it would just all be working perfectly as per normal. And lastly, we built on Ethereum or on the EVM because we believe in this in the ethos, right? I think the spirit of like decentralization, the spirit of like the cypherpunks, I think all these are very much values that we treasure and we still believe in, and that's why we were in this space. So I think in the next few months or years we'll see a lot of innovations happening on the EVM front, and I think Funky will be part of that.
Love to hear it. I mean, a lot. It sounds like obviously so much of the focus is on, completely getting rid of these sort of UX frictions. Maybe you can offer some insight into your experience with like navigating the app stores and doing mobile, right? Because obviously mobile represents this huge land of opportunity. Obviously, it's over 50% of the global games market, especially in your target markets and audiences that like leans heavily mobile. And yet, right, like a lot of people face massive challenges with navigating this side of things. It sounds like you've built an amazing relationship with Apple, given, the feature and all this kind of stuff. Like, yeah, what are some just like perhaps insights or challenges you can share from navigating that?
I think we are in a very privileged position because Apple, especially in C, they do want to see a lot of developers building original quality content, especially games that have original IP, great storytelling, great gameplay, which we are building towards. So they're very supportive of that, and also because we are in a also a blockchain enabled game, and with Apple it's like their team they don't want to be like banning like crypto games or crypto apps, but they just want to say that hey, if you're a good quality game, good product, and you abide by their structure, which means that like you don't try to go around their sort of Apple Store and the Apple Store fees, then you are okay on the ecosystem, and then they support you, right? I think those things are very, very important, meaning that people like us who are trying to build and develop for App Store like Apple or Google, we have to abide by their rules, which is the 30% tax. Um, that is the current kind of like state of distribution right now. And as we go forward in the future, and I'm sure you know this, Piers, as Apple is being, how to say, forced by the European commissions and everything to sort of like open up their wall garden to allow developers to have more alternative means of payment, whether it's the web store or similar, then I think having the crypto aspects really help developers like us to unlock that additional, payment gateway or payment rails. And we see that with our games, right? A lot of the players who are big spenders and they also happen to be crypto user, they use that rails. They use that to buy in-game items on the web store powered by crypto. So I think that just show that number one, if you want to get on the platform, stick to their rules, abide by their rules. But once the opportunity presents itself, then and the rules allow it, then we can offer and leverage crypto to the maximum of its ability.
I love that. Yeah, definitely excited to see what this year holds. I feel like Epic was the one fighting the good fight, right? Leading the charge, and after
They're
all these hundreds of
amazing.
millions of dollars of legal fees, we're starting to see some minor concessions. So let's see. I'm optimistic though. Um, I want to move a bit more into like the AI piece. I think out of all the builders I know on the gaming front, like you were probably the earliest to recognize the scale of what's coming and like went really hard into it. So maybe you could give us just like the yeah, what was that like, light bulb moment for you? And what was kind of like the first port of call? Because I know you sort of started out building Proto Gaia, some like, like
Yep.
dev tooling that assisted that. But yeah, what was the kind of eureka moment? And then maybe we can dig into some of the components that you're working on.
Absolutely. So I think about 2 years ago, when Midjourney first came out, and I saw the outputs from Midjourney, and I was like, "Wow, this is amazing. This is getting really good." But like Dali and also, but then there was no control over the output, and that was the moment where I think like, what if we can have control over AI outputs, over generative image output? And so I kept a post on the ecosystem, and the moment Stable Diffusion came out, and all the open source aspect of Stable Diffusion, and then all the toolings that the open source community were building on top of the Stable Diffusion models, that to me was the eureka moment for generative AI for image. Because the moment you open that floodgates, people are free to innovate and contribute and just share like toolings, and the speed of which the whole ecosystem around Stable Diffusion was developed was insane, right? Within months, with control nets and things like that, we were able to like fine tune and fine grain the exact output or the pose of the characters that we want, or with like low rank adaptation models, we were able to basically take a big model, which is like 4 GB, and then fine tune a small LoRa model, which is like 50 megabytes. And that can basically adapt the weights of the bigger model and allow us to influence the output. And that to me is the eureka moment, right? And I was like, this is amazing. This will unlock productivity, this will unlock creativity, and we have to jump at it. We have to take advantage of this opportunity. So that's why we started like a small team of like 4 or 5 people inside the company to build a product called Proto Gaia, which is called now. And the idea is to just build this platform that can bring generative AI abilities for all mankind, like for all of us to use, to leverage, to improve whatever aspect that we're doing, whether it's work, whether it's entertainment, personal, whatnot. And we also contributed to the open source community. We built a plugin called an agent scheduler, because I was very early on agent as well. So I was thinking like all this stuff will just be automated, or automation will just be AI doing stuff for us and helping us. So that's why we named the plugin agent scheduler, and it got like over almost like 1,000 GitHub stars. And we released it to the public, and people love that as well. And I actually registered for a domain name called autoagentx.com, but then, we never did anything to do with it, because I always predict that one day all this generative AI will just be automating itself and helping us do cool stuff. So Proto Gaia was instrumental in helping us just speed up our shipping speed. We were able to, Cypher Odyssey is one like big game, right? But we're also testing out with like other games like the Telegram game, the Hidden Object game that we're still live right now on the App Store, with over like few hundred thousand downloads. Is all made by generative AI, by Proto Gaia, our tool. And it just shows that these kind of things in the right hands and the right developers will deliver quality. So fast forward to now, a year and a half later, we have Proto Gaia. It's a pretty decent platform for people to build image and video generative workflow. And I think I would say in a few months, we hope to bring that whole suite of abilities and products onto our next endeavor, which is Cypher AGI, to basically offer that platform for the masses, open source that and let people build on top of that. So that's our goal.
Absolutely. I'm very excited to dig into some more of that. But yeah, I mean the tooling that you guys have built with Proto Gaia already is like super fucking crazy. I remember when you demoed that for the first time for me,
Yeah.
and you kind of described it. You were saying like imagine Microsoft Excel, right? Like a spreadsheet, and you have all your formulas configured and you change one thing and it trickles down through like, I mean, I hope the audience appreciates. Imagine you had like 250 design assets, all different characters with all these different tweaks, and you change one prompt and it trickles across the entire production pipeline. Like that simple. It's so amazing. And like, I mean, I think maybe we chatted the other day about obviously the Matt Ball presentation that's come out recently that like looks pretty bearish for the gaming industry as a whole. But this is the kind of stuff that I find enormous comfort in, right? Like we've seen recently either solo devs or small teams have these like indie titles like Lethal Company and Body Cam made by those young like teenagers basically that's looking really promising. And I think this idea of being able to empower like game creators and do so much more with so much less is gonna just the amount of content is going to continue to increase, which I'm very excited for. And it's definitely where I take some comfort in the games industry and where all this stuff's going. So yeah, I guess I want to almost like take a step back a little bit. Like, we can dig into Sipher AGI, which I'm very excited about. But so, obviously you saw this opportunity, you saw Midjourney, just describe like how you fell into the Gen AI thing. And then you also recognize the agent stuff early on. I guess like zooming out a little, like where do you see this big convergence of AI in gaming? Because I know it's not just the production pipelines. Like, what's the shit that really excites you?
So, I mean, I love that. I love that you asked that question because when the whole generative AI models came out was also the same time that ChatGPT 3.5 came out. You remember? And I was thinking to myself, oh my God, like this is amazing for storytelling. This is amazing for emergent gameplay. This is amazing for role play. This is, basically it will unlock massive potential. But at that point, I was just like I was not happy enough with the output of which I can control the text model, right? The ChatGPT 3.5, number one, it's not open source. Number two, like they freaking they put gates and walls in it that like I cannot say this bad thing, I cannot say that bad words. I'm just a helpful assistant, blah blah blah. So it basically it restricts a lot of like innovation that we can build on top. And then secondly, it costs a lot of money, right? Like if it has to be online all the time. The cost of per token, like, I think it was like a few dollars per like more. I think $10 per like a million token, whereas now it's only like less than $1, right? So I think those were very prohibitive for what creators or game developers can do. But man, now there's so much that they can do, that we can do because of the ever decreasing cost of AI models of like inferencing, but also the ever growing powers, the superpowers of the open source community. Like just yesterday, like DeepSeek V3 and DeepSeek R1 just dropped, right? And I was blown away by the quality of it. It's almost as good as ChatGPT O1 in terms of like reasoning and output, and it's open source, fully open source, and then you can just run it at like what is it, 10% or 5% of the cost of like a OpenAI GPT API. So I think where all this is going is that I think AI will be the saving grace, or sorry, that's the saving pill for gaming, because as you said, like cost cannot just keep going up, right? The cost of making games cannot keep going up. So AI will save that. And also, people in gaming are also always looking for new, novel experience. Like you want something new, right? A new game, a new experience, a new way of interacting, a new way of playing. And AI will just really solve that as well. And lastly is productivity. I haven't seen that much productivity gain when it comes to game coding, coding in games, but that is coming for sure, right? I mean, we see that in front end and back end. Uh, it's coming for gaming. So I cannot be more excited to be building in the gaming space because I finally feel like this is the breath of fresh air. This is the revolution that we need to just reinvent gaming over again, right? And AI is an integral part of it. Like you have to integrate AI in everything you do for gaming.
Absolutely. No, I'm very very excited to see, not, as I say, not just how it can, reduce production costs and improve pipelines and speed and all that kind of stuff, but also what the kind of net new experiences that are unlocked are, and what the new kind of interaction models become. And I think we'll dig into that when we get onto your AGI piece in a moment, of some of the really exciting stuff that's being unlocked. But one thing that I wanted to ask you just on that point is people that are on the other side of the argument might suggest that, sure, we can agree there's going to be this explosion of content, the ease of creation, like, much smaller teams can do much more with much less. But, we're still living in this attention starved world. And like, does that just massively drive further polarization? And does it become even more top heavy that the biggest games, that most games never even see the light of day? Like, what's your view on that? Because I do think this is quite a probable eventuality. And I'm still trying to decide what I think about that.
Yeah, I think the power law is real, right? I mean, again, the Matthew Ball report that we all read, it shows that the top revenues come from just a handful of games, and I think that is a problem. um, the exact solutions I don't have. I think that we're all still looking at like what's the better way of distribution, what's the better way of getting mind share, reaching out to the audience. But I do agree with your point that with the proliferation of content, like low quality, AI generated, whatever, it's just more and more important to rise above the noise with human curated, AI assisted content, right? I think that's the important part. Like, I think humans still have to be in the loop to basically be the tastemaker when it comes to generating content, whether it's making games, making art, whatever, music with AI. And you can never really remove the human as a tastemaker from it, right? And I think that's how we have to be very mindful of that. And I think the teams that are mindful of that and still have the human tastemakers in the loop and driving in the driving seats will be the ones to win, and rise above the noise, because for sure there's going to be a ton of crap.
Yeah, no, totally agree, and love all of that. And yeah, I love this idea that we still need human tastemakers as the last sort of, bastion of hope across a variety of industries as well. Like, I was chatting with some people on like the legal and law front as well, right? That kind of stuff's still going to be true there as well. So, I don't know. Will be interesting to see how it all pans out. I also wanted to ask then, you're obviously like a big fan of just like general open source community, the pace of innovation that's coming out of it. I like fully agree, obviously, on the like AI front. The latest DeepSeek stuff was really crazy to see. But um how does that relate to your views on what's happening in crypto right now as well? We were kind of discussing before the podcast of like this sort of momentum and inertia, like that having liquid tokens and this speculative stuff is like drawing more builders in. Like, yeah, how do you reconcile these things? Like love for the open source side and like some of the crazy shit that's happening already with the like AI agent stuff in crypto.
Yeah. So your previous question asked me about, like when I discovered, like Stable Diffusion and open source, and 2 years ago when I discovered that, I thought like this is amazing, open source is amazing, but man, like people don't make money with open source, right? Like it's hard to make money unless it's like an open source plus model. And then recently with what I've been seeing with AI 16Z and all that stuff, I was like, oh wow, okay, like there is a way to make money with open source, and that's with crypto, right? That's with crypto, having a token to it and having a token and the mind share associated to it, and then open source projects suddenly have the financial flywheel that they need or the financial support that they need. So I think when it comes to AI and open source, I think that crypto can definitely add that much, I would say, needed financial motivation or incentives for the open source repos to keep growing and growing, without becoming more and more closed source and then just start not sharing anything, right? I mean, that's the problem we see with Stable Diffusion, right? I mean, as they were struggling with, finances and everything, then they just don't contribute to the open source anymore because it's not, how to say, it's not profitable for them to
Yeah.
release an open source model, which is hard, right? I mean, I understand that. So I still think that crypto just had this novel ways of solving this like financial incentive problems that we have never thought of, and I think that's one exciting aspect. The second aspect is this is a bit cyberpunk-ish, right? This is a bit like forward, like it's crazy, but if you were to imagine like if in the future if AI models were sentient and they can write amazing code, right? They can self-improve. Don't you think that they will need some means to maintain their influence and their presence via just code, right? Because they're in the digital realm, right? They're in code bases, they're in GitHub, they're in servers. So they have to have a ways to basically be immersed, and be populated and be used by people every day. And then they would use cryptocurrency as a way basically to financier or to sustain their well-being, because the moment that they are no longer needed or nobody care about their model or their code, they would go into the void. They would die, right? I mean, that's the way of saying that, maybe crypto is the lifeblood, is the bytes that, that all this AI models and AI framework can live on. And through that, they can also then influence people because they can pay a real person, right, to host a server, to have a house, to have an apartment, and host them, and then just unlock and sorry, remove the key forever, and and no one can like go in and just shut them down. And I think those things are
Absolutely.
cool, right?
Dude, that I mean, those ideas are so exciting. But I always loved, this very philosophical framing of even like, what is Bitcoin, right? Like this idea of it as a digital organism, right? That and through
Yeah.
crypto economics is like paying people to ensure its survival. Like I think similar dynamics where it's much more, active, as you say, with these sort of,
Yeah.
God models that might be conjured from some, some sort of decentralized or distributed compute stack. It'll be very interesting to see. Yeah.
And
Um,
the moment they can self-improve, right? They can self-train, self-fine-tune, and just improve. They will just need more human data, more synthetic data, more reinforced learning, more supervised fine-tuning. And how they don't have access to banks, right? The banks won't accept like a DeepSeek
exactly.
V3 as an account like owner,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So how will
Yeah.
you have that?
Absolutely. So yeah, one of the things I'd be curious your view on as well is like before we jump specifically into how you guys are
Yeah,
building what you're doing. Like there's a million and one frameworks popping up, right? There's like tons
yeah.
of like non-crypto ones. Obviously, we've seen all sorts of competing ones at the moment. There seems to be like some weird competitive tension between a few of them. And what's your view on how that piece is evolving? And especially as I mean, obviously you looked at quite a few of these things, and like yeah, how did that inform the decisions that you guys made?
I think I look at these things, or this framework, especially like an abstraction, when it comes to like programming, right? Like you have the code and you have the framework, right? And I don't think there is a framework that will rule them all. I think that's impossible. And I think going forward, it's better off to just leverage whatever existing framework to build well, build fast, and build something uh, that is what you need from a product point of view. And to zoom out a bit more, I think you will soon see a race from the big like AI model owners like the ChatGPT, the Claude, even the Hugging Face. They're all gonna start populating and pushing their own framework. Like Microsoft has AutoGen, OpenAI has like Swarm and LangChain and Claude. They have their own like Anthropic framework. Hugging Face just released like small agents. So I think it's futile. It's futile to like say, okay, I'm this one framework, or like I'm using only one framework, right? It's just really teams and products should be integrating as many useful frameworks into them as possible. And perhaps even going forward a few years, once your AI model is good enough to just code on the fly, they would just pick whatever framework that suits them best. Like you just tell them, hey agent, do this, and they would just pick the fastest and easiest and most affordable framework and just run it. Like why would they even have a conversation with you about it, right? So I think this war for attention for framework is interesting, but it should not be the focus. I think the focus is still building an amazing app, an amazing product experience that can solve real use cases, whether it's entertainment, whether it's trading, finance, whatever. And the framework should not matter too much.
I love that. I love that view. So yeah, perhaps you can talk us through AGI, not the one that most people know, but your AGI. Maybe you can talk us through the acronym, and then yeah, what did
Sure.
your exploration process and going into sort of a much more of a like custom build look like for you guys?
Sure, sure. Yeah, so just for the audience here, right? Like our AGI doesn't mean, artificial general intelligence. I think that's something for the Sam Altman and all the bigger guys over at SF to go after. For us, AGI is really putting together, I think, the three very important critical pieces that will eventually lead us to the next evolution of AI agents in starting with gaming. So the A stand for AI, obviously, and that means leveraging artificial intelligence, whether it's LLMs, whether it's diffusion models, whether it's traditional AI models such as the utility AI for gaming, to basically deliver very compelling experience to engage as many and retain as many human players as possible to have meaningful interaction with AI. That's number one, right? The AI piece. And then secondly, the G is, like I said, gaming, right? I think I think gaming is the Trojan horse for blockchain. I think gaming is the Trojan horse that can really spread out like AI agent adoption because we have all these agents, but they're so fragile. They're so easy to break. They hallucinate all the time. They're not they're not secure. And I think gaming is a bit like it's very much low risk, so you can do a lot of experiments. So gaming is a perfect simulation and experimental playground. And one thing you might not know, but NVIDIA is also especially pushing forward with gaming, especially in a realistic like point cloud environment. Why? Because they're going after the training data for robotics. Robotics right now, as we speak, need a lot of like real simulation of data of like picking up, avoiding obstacle, recognizing objects, and to do all these things in the real world environment is very costly. So they start spinning off all these gaming simulations that can then let the players, the human players, to play the game or interact with the game and provide training data. So gaming, the G, is the perfect simulation to provide the data, uh, the environment, the simulation that we need. And finally, when you have the engagement and you have the simulation, the gaming simulation, you need some sort of infrastructure to capture all that, right, Piers? You need a way to firstly attribute where it comes from, who created it, who owned it, who has right to it, and who can perhaps monetize it or trade it. And that comes right back to blockchain because, as we know, it's the perfect kind of setup for financializing all these pieces that are digital, right? The data is being generated is digital, the human and AI interaction is digital, and blockchain is the perfect encapsulation and sort of like the bookkeeper of that. So that's AGI for you. That's our vision, and the ultimate goal of AGI is then how do we provide the perfect simulation test bed for people, for humans and AI agents to coexist, to test, to simulate, to basically have a test trial before the next 5, 10 years where you see AI via robots everywhere in the physical realm. Let's see them in the digital realm first.
I love that. And so maybe you can talk us through, like, yeah, in terms of how this is tying into Cypher Odyssey right
Yeah.
now, in terms of this is tying into your broader stack, like, what are some of the kind of, behaviors that are going to be unlocked through this? Like, what are some of the, what's kind of the vision for how this can be leveraged, starting with your ecosystem and then beyond?
For sure. So with Cypher Odyssey specifically, we have already built our traditional AI for gaming, which is called utility AI. Basically, it's taking a playbook from The Sims. You know that game, right? A very popular game, The Sims. And that game is popular because all the NPCs or the AI characters in that game have interactions and behaviors with you, the player, and others in a very, how to say, almost I wouldn't say human, but also more like very unpredictable and sort of like non-binary way. And that is utility AI. And we basically leverage that and build that inside our Cypher Odyssey game, where right now you play the game, you have two AI bots companion that can go into battle with you, and they will play in a very interesting way, like whether they see threats, they're happy, the health is low, the environment is dangerous, they will behave differently based on this utility score. And I think that is a very interesting use case for combat driven games like us. Now, adding the so-called agentic layer on top, imagine that these AI bots are soldiers. Now with the LLMs as the brain, let's say DeepSeek or Claude or Gemini 2.0, you have these commanders that can issue orders and instructions based on the in-game feedback from the game engine. You have this very exciting emergent gameplay where, maybe I don't need to control the actual gameplay itself, but I can be more strategic. I can be more of a hands off because my reaction aren't so good, but I can direct my team using natural language to do things, to do certain strategy, to do certain builds that can benefit my playstyle. So I think that's going to be a very novel use case there, where the human, through the AI as a brain, can interact with the AI in game. And then secondly, with we all know this, like man, when you let's say you play Path of Exile 2, right? It's a massive game. And every time they have a new update, like shit, like the meta is out, like all your gears are out, you need to let me see learn everything. and you have to go to Discord and chit chat. Like, what if you have AI agents that can basically help you with that loop, right? Make the discovery aspect of the game less painful and have that kind of relationship with the agents more permanent. It's not like Google search. It's a companion that can be together with you as you progress through the game, as you level up, as you learn new meta, as you acquire a new weapon. I think those two things are just novel experiences that we haven't seen in gaming before. It's always been me and my computer, but now you have a companion. So I think that's something that we are very excited about.
I completely agree. That stuff fascinates me, and I think yeah, obviously you just describe it perfectly, like the utility in a sort of single game environment. But I also love this idea of, you know, the cross game but persistent companion, right? Like I remember like the play style you have, like what was most interesting to you, like
That's
you
right.
know what resonates the most in that last game, and then like even as you're navigating through things, it's like, oh, do you remember when this happened in another game? Can help inform stuff. I think that stuff's going to be very cool.
So I think just to double, I love that, and just to double click on that. I think the holy grail that we're still seeking, and I think everybody is still seeking in this space in order to have persistence, peers, is memory. How can our companion have memory? Because as you know, an LM context window, let's say Claude is like 128,000 tokens. So
Mm.
let's say after that's 100,000 words. So after 100,000 words, the LLMs will start to forget you or forget things that you say, right?
Mm.
Yes, Gemini 2.0 is pushing that to like 2 million, but still, like, is 2 million enough to encapsulate all the experiences, all the memories, all the knowledge that you and your companion, your dear AI companion, share throughout all these years of gaming? I don't think so. That's not enough, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the holy grail. Like, how do we create almost like this imaginary library of memories, and then you share them with your AI companions, and then whenever you need a certain section of the memory in the library, your AI agent will say, "Hold on, Piers, let me go there to that section of where me and you play Godzilla, you know,
Mm.
off the grid. Let me pull that out. Let me remember what we did together. Okay,
Yeah.
now let's talk." Right? I think that's the holy grail.
I completely agree. And I also think, by the way, there are ways to sort of make that tie into the game lore that would make sense, right? Like this idea of retrieving memory modules. There would be an interesting way to tie that into game design and make it not totally disruptive to the experience as well. I love it when people are able to successfully navigate things that would be a UX friction and actually tie it into like part of the game, right? I thought
Mm-hmm.
even an example that stood out in crypto ages ago was like DeFi kingdoms, like the onboarding, where it was like
Mm.
talking you through your wallet setup, but all in like the medieval like vibes. It was like it was really funny. It made the actual thing that should have been a point of friction really enjoyable, and so I think that will come. I also wanted to say though, like obviously you listen to Sam Altman and he's talking about like, you know, billion token context windows that have like your entire life eventually. Like you can see how we could get there with more like yeah, granular persistence too. But definitely very interesting and excited to see what comes, because it can't all just be a question of like, you know, context window scaling and like module retrieval. Like hopefully someone figures out some clever way to sort of like bridge this gap that doesn't require like, you know, brute forcing more context or dicing it up basically. So definitely on the lookout. We'll see what comes. Okay, cool, exciting, love all the AI stuff, excited to see more of that coming online. For those listening, like when can people start to see more of this stuff and actually tinker with it in within
Sure.
your own game ecosystem?
So right now you can already play around with the AI companions in the game, like as like they are, you know, NPCs, they're combative NPCs, and there have already people trying different like very exciting builds with different kind of like squads set up. After Lunar New Year, so around the end, towards the end of February, that's when we will do our first demo where you via our simulation operating system on the web, you can talk to your personal gaming agent, and you can right now her name is Kyle. You can ask Kyle to basically interact and do things in the game on your behalf. So you using natural language, and she would parse that all those natural language using her knowledge of the game and also her like structured kind of like code output. She would direct those code output to the game engine, and the game engine would actually NPC will start moving. So it's like playing The Sims with your voice, basically. So
That's
we want to be doing that, and then the next evolution is that okay, now that you can manipulate things, move there, turn off the jukebox, dance, buy this, buy that, then we want her to then start forming the squads. Like okay, I'm gonna fight with Piers tomorrow night. You know, Piers has his own Kaio. I have my own Kaio. He is an offensive player. Let's come with together with me. Let's think of a strategy to beat his team. Go
Mhm.
through all his past matches, like see what kind of strategy he'll run. Come up with your own ideas. Let me know, and then tomorrow at that time, fight him, fight his team, and all those things are happen without you and me like even talking or like even being present. But at the end of the day, after the teams fought, we can watch the replay, like the 3D replay of two teams going at it and the thought process of your Kyle and my Kyle. Like,
It's very
okay,
cool. Yeah.
shit, I was wrong. Like he didn't go offensive. He went with like a tanker, you know, whatever, a long range attack build, right? And they'll start thinking through it and they'll start learning. And it will get to a point where they will start playing themselves and get better and better and better. And then we just basically like be the tastemaker, right? It's up to us to just like nudge them to a certain direction. So I think that's a very exciting space to be exploring, and that's what we're shipping in Q1. And then lastly is crypto, right? Blockchain, so financial. Like, can they trade for us? You know, can they trade in-game items? Can they trade the game meta? Can they
Mm.
buy the hottest Godzilla like gun that is like the most sought after? Can they predict that thing? Um, I think with enough like memory and enough data, and data is very important. Like, can we provide a data pipeline that the AI agent can tap into when it comes to the game, the commerce, the on-chain transactions? And this is where on-chain transactions are amazing because nobody is hiding it, right? They can just read all the blockchain explorer. They can see what's the meta, what's being sold, what's the pricing and everything. So I think that is the next exciting use case where agents can make financial transactions for in-game items to
I
help your purpose.
I totally agree, but like game economies and exploits and people being clever with like cornering supply and fucking with them has been like the bane of many game developers' existences.
Yeah.
Like, I grew up messing around trying to find those exploits myself and or running bot armies or things like that. Like this introduces an entirely new dimension to trying to manage like economy design basically as well. So I'm curious, I want to
I
jump
think
into the token after this, but yeah, what are your thoughts on this?
I love that part because I had just a recent conversation with my team. And you know how Cypher Odyssey is a live service game, right? It's a free to play
Hmm.
live service game. Live service meaning we have to, based on the user data, based on the user feedback, on the numbers, we have to adapt and create new content, new gameplay, balance the economy and everything, right? That's the live service game. What if we can build an AI system that can self-operate and self-run a live service game? That would bring down costs as well. And that would be very, very interesting. What if the AIs are better at spotting these frauds or better at spotting irregularities in the system or signs of
Totally.
friction? And I think that's an exciting frontier, and we definitely want to be building towards that as well from a developer point of view because a self-improving system is always the holy grail of engineering, right? So I'm glad you asked that. I don't have the answer to that. I know that's going to be a problem for sure with open economies, but I think AI can play a hand there.
I agree, and it's going to be very cool. But we're going to see some crazy shit. Like you remember last year there was that Fraser experiment where it was the smart
Yeah,
contract and it had
that's right.
50K in it, and people got one prompt a day, and then the cost of prompt went up, and someone managed to crack it, right? I mean, the sort of prompt attacks you're going to have, like let's say like a prompt injection attack on something that's
Yeah.
running the live service economy, like mint 10,000 more of the rarest item and destroy the economy. Like it's going to be very cool. It's going to be adversarial at some points, I think.
So that's why one of in our like in structure design, there's always that part which is called the word escape is kind of like a gate. So after the AI do all the thinking and everything, before it does a mission critical code deployment or
Hmm.
a system change, it needs human in the loop. That's where it says, "Hey, Piers, like, should I be doing this? Like, can you just check?"
Yeah.
So those things are very important to have that built in at the beginning, like while we're thinking. Like same with Twitter bots, right? All these Twitter agents. I think I'm not sure how they're running it, but for us, we'll have that aspect. Like, yo, like I'm gonna write this, and this is a bit sensitive. Like, should I or should I not?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Makes sense. Makes sense. Excited for all to come all the same. I wanted to excuse me, I wanted to quickly touch on the Sipher token. Maybe you could give us like a quick overview of how you've woven this into the ecosystem so far. And then, yeah, wanted to ask a follow up, but would love to hear from you how that's working currently.
Yeah, sure. So the token that represent our ecosystem is still Cypher since the beginning, right? I think our ecosystem vision is still true. This token should represent all the value that we are building, right? Whether it's gaming, whether it's Cypher AGI now, and how we plan to use this token is quite simple. Number one is that we want people to leverage the token to be able to unlock features for the platform for additional abilities, for agent abilities, for agent function. And people will use the token as also a way as payment for these on-chain or off-chain AI services that would require like more compute or like a bit more heavy load. And lastly is, now with President Trump being elected, I think we can speak a bit more freely on the token should reflect some kind of value capture, right? Some kind of value sharing. And the value sharing is if the games that are in the ecosystem, like Cypher Odyssey, is making money, we'll devote 50% of all the profit from the game to then buy back the token and burn. That's a very simple, clear way of like making sure that we share revenue with the ecosystem. And in the future, as people are launching like the Piers KO, the Tin KO, or different like gaming agents and more agents, they will also be using the Cypher token as a fee, right, to generate these things and have them on the platform, right, onboarded. So again, that fee will just be captured via Cypher token and burned. So very straightforward. Value generation and then value captured through burning.
I love that. I'm also curious then around. I mean, obviously you've had a liquid token for quite a few years, right? I think it was 2021 or maybe early 2022 that like that initial
Early 22, yeah.
yeah, like I'm curious how you reflect on that, right? Obviously you built a holder base anyway, you've had all this kind of crazy shit go on before, like a lot of the games come online. Like, yeah, what are some of the key insights from that? Like if you could go back, would you do anything differently around that? Would love to hear from you.
Yeah, that's a loaded question for sure. Um, because back then when we launched, like I think it was a very different environment, right? You remember that.
Hmm.
Uh, I think if I were to go back, I would still launch token because it would just allow us to like really be more ambitious and raise the funds that we need to build out this massive vision that we have. So that's number one. I would still do that. Number two is that the token use case, I think would change, would it will continuously change. I think it's very hard to say this token is forever X, right? I
Hmm.
think as a digital kind of asset, it will be changing with the time. So I would say, keep the token very clean, like saying it's an ecosystem token. It's meant for value accrual. It's meant for value capture. It's meant for a fee, kind of like generation fee, and keep it simple there. Having the token launch too early because we had it launched quite early and also we had delays in like launching the game was quite painful as well, especially for the token holders because they see that the price coming down because there's not many use case coming up, right? So if I were to advise I would say my younger self back then, I would say hold on to the token launch as closest to the product launch as possible, but definitely before the product launch for like mindshare generation and everything, and then have the token as the flywheel that can push, the attention and the growth loop. So those would be the things I would take away, my lessons that I would take away from my 3 years experience.
Totally makes sense. I mean, obviously the flip side is you do have a pretty broad holder base these days, and it's like,
Hmm.
I mean, we're we're very much an industry where there's a lot of like short-termism and impatience with it, and I think a lot of the learnings for the gaming sector broadly have just been obviously how long these big projects actually take to deliver. But like to hold something for 3 years, I mean, like it's like venture time frame of what most people are underwriting, like venture bets, more traditional venture bets are like. And so yeah, I guess there's two sides to that. um
Yep.
I'm curious as well then, like actually kind of following up from that, like you're still just as passionate and as excited as the day that you and I first met, which I always admire. I think a lot of people have like struggled a little bit on the gaming front. As I say, a few people are quite jaded about how long it's taken to get some of their projects to where they wanted them to be. Like how do you reconcile being such like a sort of long-term oriented builder with the very like short-termism inherent in this space? Like what are some of the ways that you keep an even keel through all of this?
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking earlier before we went live, right? That there are moments where we're just like, wow, shit, like the stuff that's happening is ridiculous, and because we are a certain way and we don't do certain things, we are not able to capture the mind share or the money or the flows that other people are doing. So I definitely hear you. How do I keep it, how do I keep the fire going on? I think it all started from the vision, right? The passion, right? I mean, I'm just like I said, like I love gaming. Right? I think if I were to build like I don't know, like a finance product, I would I would probably have lost my mind. But because I'm building games and every day I'm playing the game, I'm playing new games, I'm seeing what's cool, I'm seeing what we can build, and I'm working not just on one game, Piers. I have multiple games. Actually, we actually have this very ambitious, like almost triple A level game that we're making, and I'm gonna excited to share some of the sneak peeks later with you, maybe down in the next
Yeah,
few
yeah.
weeks. But it's just exciting. Like, we're building just novel experiences, and we're able to be at the frontier of all this technology. And I every day I get tired, but it's just I don't know. It's just exciting because when once we see someone like we launch the game, I go to the launch event and I see people just picking up Sipher and playing it and having fun and like being like, oh wow, this is in the game. Like, oh wow, I have this. Like this character, and then they start saying like, oh, what this I own these things. I had this legendary gun. Now I own it. Like, I think those are just exciting moments that will keep the fuel going on. But of course, we still gotta be mindful that we gotta show it with real revenue and profits and so on. So those will be the focus going forward for this year. But
Mhm.
I mean, I cannot ask for a better job, to be honest. It's just super fun.
Good man. I love it. I've got to ask then to double click on that, like the vision and some of the stuff downstream. Right, you mentioned some other game products coming out. Like you mentioned that Cypher itself is an IP. Like, what are some of the long term ideas around perpetuating this IP? Further.
Imagine if the IP can build itself or like disseminate itself. That would be an exciting. Like I've just been thinking like, what if we have a team of just human and agents, fueled by, of course, the token incentives and financial incentive to just keep building, enlarging this experience, right? This Cypher experience, whether it's Cypher Odyssey, whether it's Cypher Strife, our strategy game, whether it's Cypher 3, Cypher 4, whatever. And how do we keep that loop going? And then also powering all that is this self-improving life service machine, like AI machine that just keep it's like the Matrix, right? Just keep improving itself. And then if that happens, then I'm happy to be in the Matrix. I'm just happy to be a part of the part of the cognitive simulacrum. But
Good man.
yeah, I think that's the idea.
I like that. That's super exciting. And yeah, no, look forward to you teasing some
I
more of
think
the
I,
upcoming
I I
products as
think
well.
I think lastly we would touch about memory, right, Piers? I think gaming as a simulation is exciting because we are able to capture real experiences in a digital environment, and these are memories, right? These are things that we do together online with our friends, with our AI companions. Um, and I think with as memories get larger and better, and the way the system is able to capture more nuances, like I think the idea of your digital twin or your idea of like your second self like comes to mind. And I think movies and gamings are sort of like this mirror, right? Where we tend to predict what will happen, like for the humankind, like movies and games. And I think that it's so funny that Cypher started 3 years ago with the word cipher as the combination of, the cyberpunk manifesto and surrogates, which means
Mm,
the digital avatars that we inject our minds and brains and will to. And those are essentially agents, right? AI agents.
mm.
And fast forward 3 years later, now we are sitting here talking about the rise and of AI agents, starting with gaming. So I cannot predict what's gonna happen in the next 10 years, but I would say that in the next year and a half or 2 years, I think the mind share of agents and gaming agents and helpful agent, productive agents are just gonna come, and I think for us we would hope to lead or to be the front facing team that will just allow gaming AI versus AI experiments to happen, and that's why we built AGI.
I love that. I love that. It's super exciting. I was going to ask you a question on the topic of the metaverse later, but you pretty much hit on a very cool vision of, as you say, the Matrix-esque world. I also, yeah, firmly believe, like, I love that. I've never actually heard it put like that. The idea of just that gaming does capture like real authentic moments, like, the whole digital environment as a memory. Like when I think back to the Travis Scott concert or some of the like days when I was like, 9, 10 years old with my brothers, like my recollection of those experiences is like me actually being in the game environment, right? And the craziest thing is I have like folders on my PC of like, screen recordings of me when I was 10 when my brother's playing a game, and it's like shit, it's just how I remember it, because it literally is. It's like a super high
Yeah,
fidelity ability to recollect things in a really amazing way. So yeah, it's interesting.
totally,
It's very
totally. I
interesting.
mean, we are we living in a simulation, Pierce? I don't know, but it seems very well like it. Yeah.
It certainly feels like it, increasingly so, I'd say. But we always knew that this time that we're living through was going to be like some period of great acceleration and all sorts of weird convergent exponential technologies hitting. And like, I don't know, I just think every day is getting weirder. I still feel like we don't fully appreciate that COVID happened. like, like, that was bizarre. Anyway, whatever. Uh, I wanted to ask you, you mentioned earlier, like obviously some of the stuff along the way. What's like a war story from being a game developer in crypto that you might be able to share? Like, I'm curious if there's anything that springs to mind when I ask you that from the last few years, because I want to get people like sharing some of this stuff more, because it's fun to hear, and I think it probably encourages others who are struggling through stuff.
Yeah, I think with game dev, it's the war stories are the crunch time, right? The weekends, the late nights. I think those are definitely the war stories in typical game dev. But for me, because I'm in crypto, so I had I would say three near death experience when it comes to treasury management. Um, so the first one was during the Luna crisis, and we heard about the Luna protocol and Anchor, and it was offering very good yields, right? The best yields ever. And I put like 1 million of the treasury into it, and just to see, right? And it was offering 20%. And the real estate guy in me is like, no way! Like, how can you offer this kind of thing? It's impossible. Like, how can it be this good, right? So I was always very careful of that, mindful of that, always checking the peg. And one morning I woke up and the peg was mismatched. It was 1 to 0.94, right? Back then, the Luna crash. And I immediately, like, the alarm bell in me rang, and I just basically pulled out the money from Anchor, and it just went down like
Good
to
man, you
zero,
got out.
right? So that was a war story. And I had another like similar kind of like near death experience with the FTX as well, and like Three Arrows Capital. So I think those would be the more unconventional war story that we had. And then lastly, with the gaming space, I think the hardest part about building games, Piers, is that you, especially like not hybrid casual, but like like mid-core or like hardcore games, is that you're in this like experimental um prototyping loop, right, for a while, like a year, maybe a year and a half, before you're able to get something of significant quality to go out to the market for feedback. And that is a very long loop. That's a
Mhm.
very long time. And that's a lot of money spent because that amount of time is a lot of money and time. So we ourselves had a year spent building Cypher in Unity until we realized that, hey, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, this doesn't work. And then we had to switch to Unreal Engine and relearn the whole tech stack, and then of course master Unreal Engine. So um, that was interesting. That was hard.
Yeah,
Um,
no
yeah.
doubt. Having to make the big pivot. Um, I wanted to ask, as someone that's so, passionate about all of the, all things gaming, all things digital species, and kind of where we're heading. Yeah, what would you regard as the most impactful digital experience you've ever had?
most impactful digital experience? I think it's playing games. I mean, I I play some really, I think, like masterpieces. Like Metal Gear Solid has always been a game that I'm not sure you heard of that franchise by Hideo Kojima, Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, of
It's
course, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah, it's my all-time favorite, and because the game is not just a game, it's really communicating a message. It's really telling a story. It's really predicting what a war, I mean, sorry, yeah, what wars and what, society and world wars could become in the dystopian future. And I think that's the same kind of mindset that I have when it comes to building Cypher as well. Like, can we tell a story? Can I, through Cypher Odyssey, tell a story of this AI overlords that now control all the humankind, and then you're only able to basically adventure with your mind. But every time you accumulate new experiences in Cypher Odyssey, this AI overlord resets you because she wants to preserve a state of peace, of
Mm,
tranquility. And whenever humans evolve, wherever we sort of like change, that then they disrupt the so-called natural order. So that's the message I want to send across. Do we want peace or do we want evolution and with that entropy and chaos? Um, and that is what really inspired me when it comes to just, building games, telling that story.
I love that. No, it's very exciting. I do think as a storytelling medium, like insanely underappreciated, right? In terms of the ability to capture and engage and absorb and really, yeah, take someone on that journey. So I hope to see more of that lore unfold in the Cypher ecosystem. Um, and then, I mean, yeah, you touched on your favorite game there that was seemed to be the most impactful. I wanted to ask as well as a closing question, what is the most important book you've ever read?
Oh man, so many. But lately, my favorite is The Diamond Age by Neil Stephenson. You probably know him, right?
Yeah, I've
Uh,
also know him, but I've just started it because so many people. It's been on my list forever, and I've just started it. So
oh, you just started it?
so,
Okay,
yeah,
amazing. You'll love it.
it's actually you responded to my tweet and said you need to read the Diamond Age. That's when I downloaded it, like a few
Oh,
weeks ago.
okay.
But there we
Yeah,
go.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So, oh man, that book, especially now in the age of personal AI and like, so I don't want to ruin the book for you, but all for the audience, but people should read it because that's coming. Like we're all gonna have the young ladies primer. We're all gonna have our own version of the young ladies primer, and that device, whether it's a phone or whether it's like a web app or whatever, will change lives. And
mm,
if we make that device closed source and not open and only available to a selected few, that's very dystopian. But if we have a device available for all, for open source, for all mankind, that's going to be an amazing future. So I think hopefully we can have the latter.
cool. I love that. I'll report back when I finish it. Hopefully soon. But I love that. Tin, I want to thank you for making the time. I know you got a ton on, but it's always a pleasure. Your energy is always very refreshing, and yeah, I appreciate you fighting the good fight, and very much hope that yeah, this year brings great things. I'm excited to see more of the AI component roll out across the ecosystem, and yeah, appreciate you sharing your thoughts and insights.
Thank you so much, Piers. Always a big fan, of your content, of your support. Thank you for sticking with us. And yeah, I'm cannot be more excited to be continue building in this space alongside with you and other people. So I hope to see more of all the Delphi digital content and also your the teams that you back because that's gonna be amazing.
Good man. Thank you, Tim. Take care.
Thank you.